that I'm recording in the same item that the audio was recording just a few moments ago. I wanted to go with that. And what I want to say here in regard to that is that what we're seeking to do, the year is 2021, is to share with individuals a little about our own growth, if not a great deal about our own growth, since the time that we have started the I Will Restore radio broadcast, or what we call podcast today. And there are some things that have definitely changed, and yet there are some things that have remained the same. Some things that have remained the same. One of the things that has remained the same is the teachings of Neville Goddard, the teachings of Neville Goddard. And when we are speaking of those particular teachings, what we're talking about is there are specific teachings that are eternal, really. They are principles when it comes to Neville Goddard. And they are contained in this 5-lesson series. They are contained in the 5-lesson series. And there are many times that individuals who have been students of the Bible may not actually believe that individuals such as Neville Goddard are students of the Bible, or people who actually study the Bible. But anyone that looks deeply at what Neville Goddard reads or what Neville Goddard said will find that Neville is a very high level student of the Bible, practitioner of the Bible, mystic of the Bible. And what he has done is very much in line with what individuals have done all throughout time. And what it is that Neville has been one who has come to the point that he recognizes and affirms and practices a principle. The principle is the recognition of the divine within the human. However you want to actually articulate that for yourself, that's fine. However you want to articulate that for yourself. There are various interpretations and understandings of this particular idea, but it is found within every religious, every spiritual system. There is some degree of it. Whether it is called righteousness by faith, as Luther called it, or others may call it all kinds of things, or becoming the Buddha, if you will, or one's higher self. But one gets to the point that one understands that no longer am I looking back, I am looking forward. And I believe, indeed, that I can do all things through Christ. I can do all things through the Spirit of God dwelling in me. That I'm capable, that I'm able, that all things are working together for my good. However you come to that realization, there is a statement inside of one of the individuals that I have studied for years. And that statement said, when the will of God, when the will of man cooperates with the will of God, it becomes omnipotent. Now think about that word. It says omnipotent. You get to the point that you really believe, you are convicted very much, that first of all, you are doing the will of God. You're a human being, whether you're a man or woman, and you are doing the will of God. You're doing exactly what you have been purposed to do, no matter what the opposition may be. And there has always been opposition to doing God's will. Whether you look at Jeremiah, whether you look at Daniel, whether you look at any of the prophets of old, all of those individuals encountered difficulties in regard to what they would do. Some of them were hunted and killed, like David, hunted down by kings and all this kind of stuff. Whatever you may look, they were not always celebrated in life. And so you have Elijah, and who had to run and hide for a period of time, all of those kinds of things. But regardless of that, they believed, they were convicted that they were doing God's will. And they also expected and received divine guidance and divine help in what they were doing. And so this individual said, when the will of God, will of man cooperates with the will of God, it becomes omnipotent. And so as a result of that, you see in the Bible the experiences of individuals prior to the advent of the one who we know as the Christ, the specially anointed one. But he's not the specially anointed one in the sense that we think. He is the specially anointed one after what we call the coming of the Christ, the person who is called the Christ in the New Testament. But the word anointed is both a New Testament and an Old Testament word as well. And so Neville is one of those individuals who believes, again, the statement of a person named Tennyson. Tennyson said, God is nearer to you than your breathing. He is closer than hands and feet. And when you come to understand that, and then the prophet Jeremiah said a very interesting thing. He is quoting God. He is quoting God, speaking to him. And this is what God said to Jeremiah: before you were formed in the womb, I knew you, and I ordained you a prophet unto the nations. And so what Jeremiah is saying is there's an existence of the individual, an existence of the individual before that individual was conceived in the womb. Does not say what that existence is, but there is definitely a you that is known before you were conceived in the womb. And not only that, there's a purpose. Remember, I ordain you, I purpose for you to be a prophet unto the nation. And what God has said to one, God has said to all. And so Jeremiah articulates that. And so to understand that, to process that, to actually live that is what we're talking about in regard to that. And so Neville was one of those individuals. And the more I read, the more I study, the more I come to pray and to treat and to understand and to affirm what God has said to others. I know that God is speaking to me, and I know that God is speaking to you. The same thing in regard to other things. So what Neville said is that there are really this aspect of what he calls consciousness, or what one keeps repeating over and over and over and over again in their mind. That is their reality. Consciousness, what you are aware of, again, it is the same statement of Jesus the Christ. And Jesus the Christ called it the kingdom. The kingdom. He talked about a kingdom, not a kingdom that was coming, not a heaven that was coming. He said it was within you. Within you. That's the same thing as saying consciousness is the only reality. Consciousness, because if you start looking within your organs, so to speak, all of that, you will not discover a kingdom somewhere. That's like looking for a hell in the center of the earth. You won't discover it there. This aspect of the kingdom is a spiritual matter. It is a way of looking at life, processing life, going through. That's why the Bible speaks of your mind, my mind, being renewed. Be ye transformed by the renewing of the mind. And this is indeed what Neville is talking about. And he's saying consciousness is the only reality. It's a continual state of mind. It's not an on again, off again, day one, day out, day in the water, on the bank type. Consciousness is the only reality. He is talking about staying your mind, as one would say, steady on Jesus Christ, so steady on the mind of God. That's what he's talking about there. Consciousness is the reality you need to give heed to on a continuous basis. So that's what he's talking about there. And then there's another one. He talks about remaining faithful to your idea, remaining faithful to your idea. That's another one. There's another one called thinking fourth dimensionally in this particular one, this particular 5 series set. And all that's really talking about is that remaining faithful to your idea has to do with this aspect, again, of being persistent. That's right in the Bible, right in the teachings of Jesus Christ. And then thinking fourth dimensionally is another way of saying consciousness is the only reality. And it is also having this aspect of staying with your idea, staying with it, thinking fourth dimensionally, remaining in that mindset on a continual basis. And then he talks about the aspect, no one to change but the self, no one to change but the self, no one to change but the self. What does he mean by that? He says basically, this is between oneself and God, oneself and God, oneself. So you don't have anyone to blame, no one to blame. Jeremiah never blamed anybody for what was happening with him. It was between him and God. Jesus Christ never blamed anybody as to what was happening with him. Remember that there was this individual in the Bible that was called Pilate, and Pilate tried to say, I've got charge of you. And Jesus the Christ said, nope, you really don't. You really don't, because I can call angels down to set me free and they would come. And so that kind of thing. So no one to change but the self. And so there's no second cause to one's life. There's only the first cause, the only cause. And we are the ones. As a man thinketh, so is he. So all of those things are coming down. And so one does not get to this particular point that Neville was talking about just automatically. It's not magic. It's actually training. It's actually practice. It's actually discipline that's involved with what is being talked about. And so in 2021, we talk about the aspect of going through this particular training process, going through this particular learning process, and beginning to actually change one's mind, changing one's mind in order to bring about what one desires. And I say to individuals that what must happen, what absolutely must happen, is that your destination must be your delight. Your destination must be your delight. You've got to want it bad enough. Your destination must be your delight. If you don't want it bad enough, then you won't go through what you will have to go through. You will not take the drive. You won't take the drive, and you won't have the drive if your destination is not your delight. You will stop. There's just no question about it. And it has to be your delight now. You must be determined to get to the goal, the objective, the end result that you have in mind at this particular moment. Else you may put it off for later. Your destination must be your delight now. If you can do it later, do it later. Otherwise, you'll just be complaining all along the way, just holding everybody else back, all this other kind of stuff. And that's not good. That's not good. Everybody's got to carry their own mindset. Everybody's got to carry their own mindset. That's the whole thing with this. You just got to carry your own mindset. That's rough. And for some of us, there's like the Native Americans, when they were crossing from the east to the west, it was a trail of tears because of the snow, the conditions, and everything. And everybody was not strong enough to make it. And they had to leave their relatives that they loved in the snow. And some of them died on the path. Now, they didn't necessarily want to make that journey, but that's what the journey called for. That's what was involved with that journey. And that's what it is for us as well, is that we have to make those kinds of decisions about life. We have to make those kinds of decisions about life. And so this is what we're talking about here in regard to this. And I invite you, because it is worth taking the journey. Very much so, it's worth taking the journey. And I invite you to actually take the journey. Take this journey. It's worth it. To you, to others, it's really, really is worth it for you to take this journey. So we'll go back to this. Consciousness is the only reality. Enjoy.
Dr. D.L. Waters.
We thank you for being with us.
Welcome.
Blog Talk Radio today. I'm excited about the program. We are looking at a sermon